This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Only Friends podcast. I'm pretty sure this is episode 311, it might be 310, I'm not sure. I'm also not sure how Chauncey was sitting on the side of this table, and then as soon as the intro started, he just
knows.
plops right down in front of the camera.
He knows. He's very camera.
He's a cam
oriented.
He's not camera shy, to say the least. But we are here with, I guess guests of the pod. You're only friends with Jason.
I think we're guests. You know what? We're the B team for the podcast because the A team is like Berkey, Conrad, Brian, right? The three of us, we can just be the B team.
Yeah, I'll take B team. I don't mind being B team. We're here with Marle. Hello.
Hi, surprise-ish guest.
You're a surprise guest for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, surprise to you even.
Yeah, surprised even to myself. I did not plan on being on, but I thought, what the hell?
You thought, you know what, the A team's gone. They're trying to play 1D of the main. You bagged yesterday, both of you, and you're like, you know what, they need help today. They're down bad. Like, what would I do without a surprise guest?
Yeah.
You were literally in the building because of this little man over here, Chauncey.
Yeah, I came by to see and check on and take care of, clip his nails, my little Chance.
He doesn't like the nail clipping.
He doesn't love it, but if I tried to do, I have another cat, and if I tried to do his nails, I don't even try because he's just too vicious.
Olaf,
yeah.
I love Olaf. You sent me a picture of Olaf once that I still use to this day.
He's very angry. And
He looks angry. Is he angry or does he just look angry?
very angry, very problematic.
Some cats just have that attitude to them. They just like they're just in a permanent state of just anger and frustration, and you shouldn't bother them.
Yeah. I guess we can quickly get into talking about the main event. We can talk about you guys both played 1C.
We did, yeah. I think we both were, I guess, pretty happy with how it turned out. I mean, I don't think either of us ran well, but I bagged starting stack, more or less, and you bagged, what was it?
38.4, exact.
So we got chips. We're
Coming back to Big Blind 800, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like, this is one of the tournaments where bagging less than starting stack, normally in most MTTs, you'll think, oh man, I'm coming back to 20 bigs or less. But you play the main and you bag 40K at Big Blind 800, you have heaps.
I know.
Yeah.
You have heaps, even though it feels like opportunity lost, right?
Right.
So if you register for day 2, how many bigs is that?
75.
Wow, so you just walk into 75.
60K starting,
break.
right?
Okay.
60K starting and 800 Big Blind. So if I can do math correctly, which, I mean, I'm a little bit rusty, but I think it's 75.
Yeah, the main advantage of registering day 2 in a lot of tournaments is, or like registering late in a lot of tournaments is, you're like neutralizing a lot of the variance that comes with the early stages sometimes, because the early stages are usually quite shallow. But in the main event, like when you're deep enough that you're not really going to be playing all in pots very often anyway, like there's a huge advantage to just being there on the early day.
Yeah,
Day 1.
for sure. Like, I guess the way that I see main event strat for day 1A and 1B is like day 1A, you try to show up and hope they pick you when it comes to coolering people, because you're going to be a little bit more responsible when it comes to putting in infinite big blinds, whereas some people just put in a lot of big blinds with a lot of hands. I mean, speaking of, we saw someone bust, or 2 people bust hand 1 of the main flight 1D.
Yeah, that's wild. That's really wild. Especially one of them that was just like, a guy gets kings and just makes it like 75x with his 3-bet or something. Like it just goes like 600, 15,000 or something. Like, people are out there, man. People are putting chips into those pots.
It's an interesting thing because Matt and Conrad had a discussion in the chat about how much of an hourly you think you have for being on time. Like, how much money can you make theoretically by playing the first 2 levels, right? Where in most theoretical realms, it's probably not that much money, but at the same time, the main event is such a rare tournament. If you are fortunate enough to be gifted a stack early, it is still worth much more money than the normal tournament you're going to play when you double.
I would also say as well, with an event like the main, because of how deep the stacks are and because of how amplified the skill edges are, you get this kind of thing where whatever the value of your stack actually is in terms of ICM, the bigger your edge is, the more your stack's value is kind of inflated in that sense. And then when you win a big pot earlier on, like that sort of compounds the benefit that you get. So like the best player in the field, having somebody just punt to them for 300 bigs in level 1, they almost gain more dollar EV from that than the average player would. So the better you are, the more you're gonna get like this exponential benefit of having someone just punt to you in a stupid spot in level 1, you know?
It's a very strange thing in the sense of most of the time when it comes to valuing the dollar EV, it's not gonna be worth much, but being there in order to get chosen for these massive big blind mistakes where it goes open, call, giga 3-bet, where the only response you have is basically just like play aces anyways. And then someone puts in infinite big blinds with kings where most of the time they're just going to be drawing pretty slim.
Yeah.
You know? And having that ability to get that double allows you to dodge landmines that maybe you would just be out otherwise.
Right. Yeah.
Like when it comes to playing deeper, you know, most times, call it, people with higher win rates are going to be a lot more wary of the set over set situations than the average person.
Yeah.
Some people flop a set in a spot and they just think, oh, if they got me, they got me. But there are spots where they just only got you.
Right.
You know?
And I think there's also like if you were to look at it in terms of complete neutral edges, like nobody has a skill edge, and it was just a question of flipping coins. If you're flipping coins and you start out with more money than the other guy, you are more likely to be the one who has all the money at the end. And just having the opportunity to win pots early on has that effect of when you do get into a situation that's, you know, forces you to be subject to some variance, you're more likely to have chips left behind, like you say. So I just think for the main, for other tournaments, it's like, yeah, whatever, late reg, early, doesn't matter a ton. But for the main, like, you just got to be there day 1.
Yeah, like it's a tough one in the sense of some people don't study deep stacked tournament poker.
That's true, yeah.
And I guess you can call it kind of like a cash game format, you know? And that's why I think some cash players, especially live cash, that have seen a lot of the heuristics and examples over and over again of this guy raises here, he has a good hand. This guy doesn't check raise here, he doesn't have these hands most of the time, has a lot more value in a tournament like the main with a slow structure than a tournament like a Colossus with 30-minute levels. You know, where you're doubling in first hand in that, it's not going to be worth as much. But you're in the main, you're playing 300 big blinds deep, you're just going to be in your wheelhouse much more often.
Yeah, 100%. And I think especially for a lot of the cash game players in the field who are not going to get that much of their EV from, like, they're not going to be as good in the end game as tournament regs are. But what EV they do get is going to come from cashing the tournament more often as a product of playing better at deeper stacks earlier on.
Yeah.
In comparison to a lot of the tournament regs who, like, maybe they even show up on day 2, or maybe they're just like not that good at 300 bigs, but they have enough of an ICM understanding that on the occasions where they do run good enough to cash, they're going to go slightly deeper on average.
Yeah, it's a tough thing when it comes to the main in the sense of it being a moonshot tournament more so than others.
Yeah.
So when it comes to day 2 and you max, you're going to inherently just gain EV by maxing, as some people have already busted, so your chips are just worth more.
Right.
But at the same time, if you're not in that day 1 type of situation, you potentially aren't going to be able to catch some of the punts that are going to be more available in a tournament like this, especially when the debate as of recent is how many players in the main overall are losing at what clip.
Yeah.
Right? At what negative ROI is the average player?
You saw that tweet from Brewer then, I assume. What were your thoughts?
I missed this.
Okay.
Do we
You want to explain?
Yeah.
Probably don't have that queued
don't
up,
have
'cause
we don't have it queued.
No.
But if
Sorry.
I can find
you
it.
can find it. Let me try to check.
I'll explain it in the meantime.
Yeah, go
Basically,
for
it was Chris Brewer, I think, going back and forth a little bit with our very own Matt Berkey, Ike Haxton.
Classic.
I mean,
Yeah.
it does not surprise me.
If somebody puts out a poker tweet, there's going to be a Matt Berkey in the reply
There's
somewhere.
he's going to be in there. Ike Haxton, Justin Bonomo, a couple of others were contributing to it, I think. And the idea was Brewer put out a poll of what percentage of the field do you think in the main event is winning?
Right.
And, you got it already. Perfect.
He's quick with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the poll results, real quick, are 40% of people think that greater than 15% of the field is greater than 0% ROI. And then 18, 20, like basically 20%, 20, 20, 20, 40 when it comes to 0 to 5% of the field being greater than 0, 6 to 10% being greater than 0, and 11 to 15% being greater than 0. So most people think that the average, not the average, but more than 15% of people that register are winning in the main event.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take. I think that the way I look at it is I definitely think that 0 to 5% is unrealistic. Like, I definitely think it's more than that.
Yeah.
But I would say that there's probably I've always thought that there are a lot of people who think they're winning a lot in the main and who are actually not winning almost anything. And there are a lot of people who think they're like break even to, maybe losing a little bit, who are actually losing a lot. So I wouldn't be sure exactly what percentage it would be, but I do think there's a lot of misconceptions about the main. I was quite curious about Bonomo's response in that thread as well, because he said that he thought that the top 10 or 15 or 20 players in the field are way ahead of like number 200 in the field. And then number 200 is also way ahead of like number 1000 or something. Like, so he basically thinks there's like a big curve to it, basically.
Yeah, I was formerly in the camp of the difference between the top player, like best player in the main versus 100th best player in the main can't be that different. But in recent past, I have been proven wrong. Like, I think some people in the main are winning at an extremely high clip just from experience, from being able to, for lack of a better term, and we kind of make a joke of it now, but like being a navigator, like navigating the MTT streets where you can kind of play more hands because you can get away from some big hands, or some people can't get away from some hands where, theoretically speaking, a call in a certain spot or a defend might be a little bit too wide and you might be theoretically losing some dollars, but in practice you make up for it by people bluff catching too wide, not bluff catching enough, right? Trying to figure out where somebody is imbalanced to be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And I think the good players too, like, they just won't give up, and there's just so many regs who will just not grind those sub 10 big blind stacks, and you just have so much time in this tournament to find that great spot. And the good regs are just going to stick around long enough, and they have so much time to wait, and they will be patient, and they're not going to punt. And that's the biggest thing, I think.
Yeah, that's huge too. Deeper in the main, sometimes people have a lot of chips, lose a big pot, and have 20 bigs, and you see those 20 bigs as something that they're willing to light on fire.
Yeah.
Right. I remember last year, I think it was either last year or 2 years ago, like Yuri Zevalevsky, like very, very good Brazilian poker player, was just like at an average of 30 big blinds for the entire day 5 or whatever it was, where I was like, so many people will just not be able to have that patience to have a 30 big blind stack every 2 hours. But when you know how big of an opportunity it is and how rare this tournament is, you just respect it and know how 30 big blinds goes in well, you can certainly just kind of sneak, right? You basically just sneak and hope to spin.
Right. And I think another thing that people don't account for very accurately is how top heavy the main is, and how much of your ROI is accounted for by when you get chosen, as you put it, to run deep. How often do you turn that into a win instead of a 4th or a 5th or a 6th? Because if you look at like 2 years ago when Karai went deep, Karai was the only player in the final 3 to 4 tables, from what I remember. I think, was that the same year that Chance went deep?
I think it was, yeah, because I think Chance lost with George Holmes, the ace king to aces.
Right, okay. So Karai and Chance went deep, I think, in the last 3 tables.
It was Karai, Chance, and Mitch Halverson.
Yeah, right. But even Mitch doesn't play at the level of experience that Chance and Karai do, in terms of like, they've both played high rollers and all this stuff, right? So I was looking at that and I was saying, if Chance or Karai gets the chip lead, it's fucking done. Like, one of these guys is going to win it because it's such a valuable spot for them to be in, and they're not going to punt because they know how to handle those spots so much better than every other player in that field, because it's not the level of pressure for them that it is for everybody else, right? Like, they've played for millions of dollars before, and they're the 2 best players left in the field. So in the rare occasion that an elite player runs good, I mean, it happened with Espen too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Espen is like such an elite level player.
He is, yeah.
He ran good, he played amazing, and he managed to pull out the win, And I think people look at edges in the main in terms of like, oh, this guy is so good, he's going to cash like 50% of the time. It's not really how it works.
No.
Yeah, I think there's a very stark difference in making the bet of picking people to beat a certain ROI threshold versus like crossbook team versus team. I think this is a very real thing. And you want to have someone that can win the tournament. You know, sometimes you're not going to cash. Like, you kind of want the day 1 or day 7 kind of guy for when you're cross-booking, right? But if you have a certain bet of a threshold of ROI, you definitely want to have people that can mitigate that variance.
Yeah, I think that also there's a little bit of entitlement tilt that comes with all these numbers too, because I felt it yesterday for sure. It's specific to the main, and you just, the pressure of caching, the soft fields, the soft tables, and that little voice in the back of your head that's like, it's crazy to bust day 1. It's crazy to bust day 1. And then I felt myself pushing just a little bit, just, you know, thinking I can get away with things that I really can't, just a little bit. And that all plays into it for sure.
Yeah, it does. There's a lot of mental game to just main event, different scenarios on main event day 1. You know, like the scenario where you lose half your stack early on. Like, I lost a third of my chips in the first orbit. You know, like there's the scenario where you just have less than starting all day like I did. And then there's the scenario where, like 2 years ago, I had the opposite, where I won a big pot in like level 2 or something. And now I have like almost 100K and, you know, might have a super soft table, and I ended up bagging 180K. It was a day that went really well because I ran really good. But you've got so much of like, it's like an emotional swing from one scenario to the other, right? You could be in a scenario where you just feel like everything's against you all day and it just sucks, and you bust level 4 and you just hate yourself afterwards. Or you could be in a scenario where you just feel like you absolutely crushed it and you bagged 200K, and you just feel like you're going to win the main event. And it's just like, main event day 1 is that wild, like there's so much emotional investment in it.
I've heard many stories of people that have had a lot of chips deep, but can't keep it together for 7 straight days.
Yeah, that too. The stamina. I mean, the furthest I've gone was 228th, day 5.
A sick run.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, it was 2021, I think. And I could definitely feel, I mean, it's a special kind of pressure that starts to sit in around day 4. And yeah, you just feel it. And that's just, that experience is so invaluable. Just
it starts becoming real, right? It starts becoming real in the sense of having that potential 6-figure life-changing score where you're only so many people away from having a complete change in life, especially if you're shot taking or taking some sort of risk that you otherwise wouldn't, you know? We don't play the main event in order to start. And like, I had this issue for myself this year when I busted day 1. I played a hand versus D. Peters where I probably should have folded pre. I guess we can get into some hands, and I'll start, and then you guys can go through. But I played a hand where I opened Jack 8 suited from hijack. He 3-bets cut off, and we're like 300 deep. I'm like, well, this seems like bottom to me with a big blind ante. In normal situations or low jack, hijack, I would fold. Theoretically, I was just wrong, just a couple pips too wide. I peel, flop comes, king, jack 3, rainbow with a diamond. I check, he goes quarter pot, I call, turns an 8 of diamonds. I'm like, oh, this is great. So I turn 2 pair, unblocking the king. Check, check. River is an offsuit 9. So queen 10 makes a straight. And he's still going to be capped at like some king 10, some king queen. I go pot and I go 6,500. And at this point, big blind is 200 because I raised the 5. He goes 17. I go 6,500. He raises to 16.5K. So like a very small raise. Yeah. And it's like, well, I know where his bluffs are coming from, and I know he's capable of bluffing. So I just kind of put the chips in, but don't expect to get them back. And he just has top set for 3 kings. And it's like, this is just a really good hand played by him, and a spot that I don't need to take in the main event, right?
Yeah.
You don't take these spots out of position playing against one of the best players in the world. You can just fold, and it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Let it go.
Just not, like, I think the way that I would describe that is like, that's not where your EV is coming from.
No,
right?
of course
like,
not.
Your ability to win in this event is not coming from your ability to scrape every dollar out of a pot against D. Peters.
Right.
It's coming from like every single other player at your table.
Exactly.
So I would just fold pre there.
I mean, I struggle with that a lot though too. I was texting Landon a hand actually from the ladies event. I had Chrissy B at my table, and you know, she's obviously a very good player, is 10-handed. And a lot of recreational players. And I struggle where it's like, I really just like don't want to play pots with her,
Sure.
especially when the table's so soft. But also it's like, I need to just like get value.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Or I can't just like fold completely and just not battle her. But it's always like this kind of like give and take when.
Hey, buddy.
Oh, sorry. You know, it's like that give and take is like, I don't want to battle this person, but like, how much do I just overfold to them?
Yeah. I think it, for me, it comes down to like recognizing the situations which are actually really marginal versus the situations where you might be giving up a certain amount of EV, but you're still making money, right? So like, it's the question of like, let's say you flop like a vulnerable 2-pair against like a really good player. In a lot of cases, you might raise this, but you're gonna just call it, and you're still making money just calling. And
they bluff more.
But what you're now doing is you're allowing yourself to sometimes get away from it on runouts where it just becomes a lot worse for your hand. But there's obviously still going to be some runouts where you still win a big pot, or you like maybe you take a hand that like mixes 3 bets and folds pre-flop, and you just fold it against the really good player because it's just not super important for you to have the exact right amount of bluffs in your 3 bets and stuff, you know?
Yeah. I guess real quick, we're going to pop into a CSA. We have Conrad on the line from the biggest main event in the history of poker.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Yes. What is poppin', squad?
What's going on,
Hi.
How many chips you got?
I got like 90.
Nice.
A little
All
over
right.
90.
Conrad's got
we're
chips.
chilling. We're gliding. Wait, where's my sidekick? Who the fuck gave him today?
It's Landon, me, and Marley. So the B team's on duty.
And Sean.
Wait, so the sidekick, he never asked for the day off, so I'm gonna have to take care of that when I get off the phone with you guys, because there's an issue there. You know?
Yeah.
The
This man
sidekick is
can't
at the
just be taking off
Bellagio.
days and shit.
The sidekick is
Wait,
on
is that-
whale duty.
I mean, if you're whale hunting, I guess I can't be that mad.
Yeah,
at him, right?
he's whale watching right now.
Right.
All
Yeah,
right,
he's
all right.
on
Well, if
a
you're
he's
whale
on a
watching,
fishing
then that's another-
excursion.
That's another story. But yeah, the shit is popping down here. We're actually playing 9-handed. So for all you dummies that were scared about being 10-handed, we are 9-handed. We are 9.
Nice.
Yeah, I ended up saying that I was pretty sure, like pre-podcast, that the 10-handed warnings are just a bunch of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You know, they started spreading FUD about playing it
Fear-mongering.
before.
It's a
Yeah,
conspiracy theory.
yeah, I feel
That's
a little bit not upset, you know, just disappointed in the fact of playing 1A.
How's the tortoise doing? Is he with you?
The tortoise is actually not with me. I'm not sure how he's doing.
Okay. Well, we'll get a
But-
tortoise update later, hopefully.
Yeah, I think he's gonna call in a minute. I think he said he's gonna.
All right, sounds good.
Well, from what I
No, I
remember
just
from the
wanted-
tortoise has never busted a day one in 15 tries.
I would predict the tortoise has around 52K. That's my prediction.
I can't wait I can't wait till he says he just 5-bet rips an ace 5.
Oh, hey, buddy.
Has 130K.
Listen, I can tell you one thing: the tortoise is not doing 2 things. And that's busting with ace 5 or deuces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just one thing for sure. He's just not doing it. The tortoise, he doesn't get down like that.
If
Dog.
there was a live odds, like imagine we just have a sports book for live odds of certain things, like Brian Lamana busting day 1 would be plus 800.
Poker shares.
Sounds
We got to
about
get
right.
Timex on it.
Yeah,
Like get Timex to give odds on tortoise busting with a hand other than like queens plus.
Yeah, what value hand strength will Brian Lamana bust with? Will it be overpair, 5-card hand, set?
Or will he
This
get it in
sounds
with
like
a open-ended straight flush draw and just brick?
Plus
This sounds
20,000
fucking
on that one.
hilarious.
Yeah. There's probably some good props in the main, right? Will you see Phil Hummy's nipple or not?
Whoever predicted the yes on that one would have won some money.
Yeah.
I actually put a sweatshirt on because my nipple was popping out too. So,
Well, I mean,
it's-
at least you're
it's
not
going
50 whatever years old, like Helmy, out of shape or whatever.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
Look at that.
bro is overcooking on this one.
This is the guy that
Yeah.
we apparently want everybody outside poker to think of as like the representative of what we are as poker players.
This is
Yeah.
our ambassador. This is our fearless
this is
leader.
our guy.
yeah, just let bro cook. All right, he cooks, man. Look at him.
I
That
just
man
wish
won a
he-
10K Super Turbo this week. What
He's
what
won
can we say
17
about him?
bracelets. He can't afford a costume that fucking fits him.
Yeah, he also won Nip Slip of the series.
Yeah. I mean, I would
honestly-
hope that there aren't too many other competitors for that award.
The
Yeah.
only thing he's missing is tassels.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
He's missing those.
Yeah, Nipplegate is on this year again.
Yeah, if we have any more nip slips, it'll be rivaling that guy from a few years ago who like dropped his pants and threw his shoe at the dealer.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
There
Yeah,
was a whole
no.
Poker News article reminiscing about that day that happened. It was great. I
Yeah,
loved reading
unfortunately,
that.
Pittsburgh has to take credit for that, bro.
Oh, really?
He's a Yinzer, yeah.
We can shit on Pittsburgh
Oh, yeah,
as much as we want because none of them are here.
Yeah, they're both gone. One of them's in the main.
The Midwest does that type of shit all the time, man. It's fucking crazy.
That sounds like
It's
some
right on the
class
other
from
side of-
Midwestern.
It's right on the other side of the Connie Dixon line. So, like, yeah, Midwest is fucking crazy, bro.
Yeah.
Guys, I love you.
How much time you got left on dinner break?
I have like 20 minutes, but I gotta go do some things and things gotta be done. So
Yeah, by do some things, you're gonna go to your car and maybe get high.
You know what? You just mind your goddamn business, Landon. We're gonna do what
Hey
I
man,
do.
no one's judging you. It's allowed. You can do whatever you want.
Have
We're
a
in
beautiful
Nevada,
day,
man.
guys. Later, squad.
Yeah. See, that's a guy with chirping chips right there for sure. Conrad said he,
Yeah, I could tell how it was going just by his disposition.
Right.
He's drip bleeding right
If he
now.
has like 25K, he's gonna be a different kind of Conrad.
He's not calling in.
yeah.
Right. He's just like
Conrad's got 10K. He tells me he's got some choice words to me when I say he's gonna go to his car.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess do we have Brian? Do we have a tortoise? Not yet.
Tortoise has not chimed in yet.
Tortoise has not chimed in.
Yeah,
all right.
he'll be here shortly and slowly.
Let's
Let's talk
He
about
said he's
another
having
hand.
a head and lettuce.
You guys want to hear how I lost a third of my stack in the first orbit?
Let's go for it.
Yes.
All right. So
We all got to go through our guilt.
yeah,
you know?
exactly. We get dealt kings under the gun.
Confess your sins.
We get dealt king of spades, king of hearts, and that's important. The suits are important.
Okay.
We open under the gun to 600, starting stack, obviously, first orbit. Low jack and high jack both call pretty quickly. Low jack is Lara Eisenberg, who I played with at WPT Prime.
Good player.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
player. I think she won the ladies event a couple years back.
Deep run in the prime.
Yeah, she got second in the prime. I got 8th. So yeah, played with her. I know her. She plays good. So she's the first caller. Second caller is this lady from Texas in a bright pink hat who's obvious whale.
She's out here.
Yeah, she's out there, but she's an obvious whale. And then right after that, the cutoff, who's a guy that I think, from what I can tell, is Russian, but I'm not sure. Like he's just like middle-aged guy,
Potential Russian.
probably a rec player, looks Russian. Like pretty quickly, 3-bets to 3,600. So it goes 600, call, 3,600.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I have kings. I just got 3-bet. That's pretty good. But I know nothing about this guy, and I am obviously not going to stack off with kings in level 1 in the main. Comes back around to me. I don't really want to flat and just play 4 ways. With 4-bet to 8K, which I think I should probably 4-bet a bit bigger. I'm still looking to get value.
Yeah, out of position. Probably want to go a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Either way, how big of a deal?
I think, yeah, I'm probably not a huge deal. So the 2 callers fold. The 3-better flats instantly. It comes.
That's good.
Yeah. It comes.
Getting 5-bet. I mean, fuck.
Right. It comes ace of clubs, queen of diamonds, 4 of diamonds. So naturally the ace always comes when you have
Ace
kings.
magnets for real.
Yep. We bet 3K. He calls like very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Turn is the 7 of diamonds. Putting 3 diamonds out there. Check.
That's good.
River is the 3 of diamonds. So it's now ace of clubs, queen, 4, 7, 3, all diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
I bet like half pot.
We're hoping he folds an ace.
Obviously bluffing, hoping he folds like ace jack suited, some ace queen, black ace king, stuff like that.
Yep.
Maybe even like a super nitty set of aces or set of queens. Sometimes maybe they fold.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially level 1 of the main.
Yeah, right. Like it's also just like really hard for us to have bluffs here, so it just feels like a spot where we have kings is kind of good to bluff.
Also, they're not thinking.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
They're just like, I said aces, call.
But he thinks for a little while, and I'm like, oh, maybe he's folding. This is good. And then he just like says raise and throws in a 25K chip, and I'm like, all right, well, we just snap muck. But
and he shows you jacks, no diamond.
He didn't show anything. He didn't show anything. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident he just had like ace king with the ace of diamonds. Because on the turn, the thing that sealed my decision to bluff on the river was on the turn, he did the obvious like check for a diamond. Like the diamond comes out, he like instantly checks for a diamond, right?
Yeah, the repeal.
And so I figure if he has 2 diamonds, he's less likely to do that. If he has like ace king of diamonds, he's less likely to do that.
Also, he's probably gonna bet the turn a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And he's unlikely, or like even ace king with the ace of diamonds is going to bet the turn a fair amount. So we decided to bluff the river. It doesn't get through, and we lose like a third of our chips. But I feel like it was a pretty decent spot, and a good amount of the time we just like we put a lot of hands in tough spots. We get a lot of folds.
It's a funny thing when it comes to the like theoretical analysis versus the practical. Like I like to call it the difference between like theory and whale whispering.
Whale whispering.
So
I love that.
because like in theory you're gonna have a wider 4-bet range than just like kings plus, but like in this spot you're gonna be pretty tight.
Yeah, I mean, I think in practice I'm literally just 4-betting kings, ace king, and aces because everything else I'm just peeling, and I'm happy to have callers behind because that's not that bad with those hands, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But
I'd rather be versus like a reg here than like a whale, because the whale's just gonna like they're just gonna like have top, even like an ace.
there was a
Just be like, call.
so there was
know what I
a
mean?
right. So there exactly like he could just have ace jack of spades. He just like doesn't believe.
That's
me,
what's
right?
so fucked up is like you're like, well, it's so hard to bluff here. I have to be bluffing these hands, so he really can't call with like anything, especially like level 1 of the main.
Right.
But it's like they just will.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like a full
Or,
circle.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, you're right, because it's a full circle. This is where EV is made, right?
Yeah.
This is the spots when it comes to having very few bluffs and not worrying about bluffing or being balanced, versus trying to figure out if I'm beating deep Peters with Jack 8 when he raises 2.5x, right? Like,
Right.
this is a very low
Yeah.
to negative EV spot versus very big, glaring, positive EV spot.
Right. Yeah. And I think in retrospect, like I almost feel like I can just check flop and just be like okay with having kings be pretty much the only hand that I ever actually check there. Like, I
Yeah.
think it's
I think it's fine. I don't know.
betting is probably fine too, but like
Yeah.
I
I think the bluff's fine too, but by
Yeah.
the way, but obviously, but I just think like, yeah.
it's just one of those spots where it's like I felt afterwards I was like, how did I just play a pot for a third of my chips in level 1?
Yeah,
in
it feels
a 4-bet
bad.
pot, and I'm like, I bluffed the river in a 4-bet pot, but like when you think about it, like I think it is pretty good, you know. So it's like it's just an annoying spot.
Yeah, well, it's the mix between theory practice, where in theory, you know, you're still gonna want to have bluffs in certain nodes, and then in practice, you know that your worst hand is going to be this one.
Yeah.
Right, you're not gonna bluff with an ace, right? Because you can just beat a queen, like
Yeah.
queen jack of hearts or whatever, and you're not going to bluff with a diamond because you're value betting.
Yeah.
And then you just fold to raise like pure.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're just like, okay, I accept that I'm going to still have bluffs here. So not like your frequency is going to be in check, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter in this spot. You play at 250K, you fucking watch out.
Yeah,
Right?
and I'm you know, a lot of it's obviously like timing of how he acted and things like that, and there's stuff that's relevant in live poker that just you can't incorporate into theory because you can't be like, there's no GTO for like what happens when the guy checks his cards versus when he doesn't, you know. There's no like way.
I love doing that fake tell, by the way. I always know my suits pre.
whole card check.
Yeah, and
do
I
that
always,
as well.
yeah, I love it.
I do it. What's funny is I do it, but I do it as like it's almost like a reflex for me. Like I don't even consciously forget my cards. I just look at them again anyway because my brain wants to do something physical. It's weird. I just find myself checking my cards a lot because I maybe it's like an anxiety thing that I've like gotten them. Maybe I've gotten them wrong. You know, like before I call an all in, I always recheck my cards. I'm always afraid to like snap without checking my cards because like the one time I have ace 4 off instead of aces and I snap and I'm just gonna hate myself so much.
For sure.
So,
Yep.
Yeah. So that was how I lost a third of my chips, but you know, we bagged starting, so I'm happy.
Yep. Marley, any interesting ones?
Yeah, I did have some interesting ones. I guess I just was in a lot of spots throughout the day. I didn't get like lose any massive pots.
Sometimes you just like
Bleed,
whittle.
bleed. And I just felt like I was in a lot of spots where I just felt like I had to value bet, and I just like value on myself because I felt like they were just doing a lot of just like one tiny C bet or one tiny bet. And then they would just go into like check mode. And I just have a hand like I feel like I need to bet, and they would just have top every time. But then they just were super passive with their whole range. So
Yeah, I mean, the way that I see these things from not even just like a theoretical perspective, but just the practical, like werewolf perspective, is if you're value owning yourself and losing these pots, you probably should be losing more.
right. Yeah.
You probably should be losing a turn bet and a river bet, but instead it's going check, check. You bet yourself to get value from certain parts of range, and they just happen to have top, and you lose a bet 75 instead of a turn over bet, and then a river B50.
Totally.
Or whatever. So it's like, even though you're value owning yourself, you're actually still making EV because the EV that you're gaining is through not needing to pay more for their hand this good.
Yeah.
Hey guys, real quick, what did we think the tortoise is coming in with?
I think the
chips?
tortoise, I'm going to go 75K.
I said 52.
Marley?
I'm gonna go 90.
Wow.
wow, okay.
Big,
Survey
big,
Crushing.
big. There he is.
There he is.
What up?
Oh, he's happy. Oh, he's got 500.
I like my-
500. You're all idiots except for Marley.
Oh wow, how much do you have?
94.
Let's go. Let's go.
Ooh. The tortoise is
Tortoise
cooking.
go
Almost
fast.
2 starting stacks.
I thought you would have spent 3 levels just folding.
Go fast. No, I'm
I was
in there,
trying to
man. I'm playing
calculate how
in.
many blinds and antes you pay in 3 levels and just subtract that from 60K.
Yeah.
Not a bad strategy, to be honest.
What an absolute madness it is here.
Please explain.
people everywhere. Just like, I'm looking around and just like a sea of people everywhere I go. I couldn't find a seat to even eat my salad, but we're good. We got in. We ate. We're fueled up. We're ready to go.
9-handed. You feel like you're on vacation? I mean,
Oh my God!
Can't beat it.
I sat down. I sat down at the table and I'm like, I looked around and I'm like, hey, are we 9-handed? And they were like, yep. I'm like, oh, this is great. This is just perfect because, like I said, everyone was, worried about 10-handed play. They didn't want to play, and so everyone played yesterday. So the field was much tougher yesterday, I think, than it is today.
you think so?
We're in. Yeah, I think it was. It seemed like looking through the updates, it was a lot of good players. But I mean, there's a lot of good players, I guess, on every day. But I think today was definitely the best day to play.
Always is, I suppose. On D, all those satellite winners.
Yeah.
Man, it really is interesting. You got any spots for us, Brian? What you got?
Honestly, not really. I just I won a bunch of small pots. I didn't really lose any pots.
That's a good strat.
Good strategy. Yeah.
So, yeah. I made a couple hands. I fought the set against a guy when he 3-bet me. And I got a couple streets. So,
sounds like a big pot to me.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was like the first level, so it wasn't super big. But
Here's a question. Here's a question,
Yeah.
Brian. Do you think your tortoise image has helped you get away with more bluffs? Do people recognize the tortoise? Do they know your reputation?
Yeah, but then they see me play, and I think they're like, "Wow, you play more hands than I expected."
Do you actually have people say that to you?
Yeah, one guy was like, "You're really aggressive." I'm like, "Okay." Well,
He's a snapping
wait a
turtle.
Yeah. Snapping turtle. He's a ninja turtle.
No, it was funny because the guy was like, he's like, "Oh, so where are you from?" I'm like, "I'm originally from Pittsburgh." He had no idea who I was, and he's like, "I go, I live out here now." "Oh, you live out here? So you're a pro, huh?" And I'm like,
I love
"Yeah,
that question.
something like
I never
that."
know what to say.
Yeah, yeah. If you live in Vegas, you're just or nothing. If you have a Vegas ID, then you're just a professional poker player.
I had a Lyft driver a couple weeks back who I was going to a tournament, and he asked me what I do. It's like I'm a poker player. Like told him that I played poker professionally, and then after that he was like, "So do you ever play with the pros?" And I was like, "I just told you I am a pro. I just told you I play poker professionally." And he was like, No. I mean Helmuth and Negreanu and stuff. And I'm like, no, come on. I'm a professional poker player. Give me some credit.
The people that were on, when they say that, they mean the people that were on TV 15 years ago.
That's exactly it. That's what they mean.
There's a difference between a pro and household name, So most people will only see pro as a household name, and if you're not, you're just kind of scraping it.
It was like this guy, when I told him I was a professional poker player, he didn't believe me. He's like, "No, you're not. It doesn't matter. You don't count. You're not on TV."
Yeah, not yet.
So I tell this guy, I'm like, "No, I'm a serious recreational player."
That's right.
And then halfway through level 1, DePaulo comes up with the camera and interviews me right behind the table.
I mean,
he's like, "See, I knew it. You are somebody. You are somebody.
Who
Why
are
you?
you?
Interviewed?"
Don't worry about who I am. I am nobody.
I go, "No, I work." I was like, "I have a real job."
You do.
You're
a podcaster.
Professional tortoise.
I mean, maybe I do work for a poker trading company, but it's a real job.
It is a real job, yeah.
It is a job.
How much time we got left on break now? Conrad said 10 minutes ago that he's going to go to his car, probably.
About 20 minutes.
Wow. So Conrad time and turtle time are way two different things.
Yeah.
Well, turtle time moves slower.
I obviously have the accurate time.
Yeah, I would trust your estimate of time way over Conrad's.
What's the dinner break plan? What you got cooking?
I get the same exact thing every dinner break. I go to La Pizza, and I get the Italian chopped salad with chicken breast.
Tortoises are creatures of habit.
It's nice. It's nice. We are creatures of habit. It's
especially
nice,
Italian tortoises.
There's usually not much of a line, except today. There's usually a spot to sit down and eat, but so today's a little different. But yeah, we got in. We're fed. We're ready to go for 2 more levels.
How many entries has this flight gotten?
38,000.
38,000.
38,000.
Yeah, we're approaching over 40K entries in this thing. It's
Yeah,
going to be like 47 million the first.
Wow.
First is $44 billion.
no.
Don't do that to me,
win-
Brian.
you
I
win
busted
Twitter.
already. Don't do this, man. Don't do this to me.
Oh man, I don't know. Well, the last I heard, they were at 88, over 8,800 total entries, which
They're-
obviously broke the record. So it is the biggest. So I don't know, but I'm thinking that by the end of the day, this thing is gonna have, I don't know, 4 or 5,000 maybe. I don't know. I'm just curious to see if we crack the 10K mark. I think it's gonna be very close.
Man, it's a real interesting thing, right? Because we haven't even gotten to the max late registrants.
Yeah.
Can they register? They have to register before the start of day
No,
two?
first 2 levels of day 2. Max late reg is 2 levels into
The first
Saturday.
break.
Right.
Day 2D
Into Saturday.
is
So people can register into day 1. I don't know why you would register into day 2, A, B, and C.
Day two ABC.
I
yeah.
think it's probably better if you're going to register day 2 to wait for. But maybe you want the day off. If you play tomorrow, then you get a day off, and then you play Sunday
Yeah.
if you make day 3.
But there's
Like,
still
For
what's great
day
is
1
there's,
Ds, we won't get that day off in between, but that's fine.
yeah, there's still time for somebody to notice that it's the biggest main event ever, fly into Vegas tomorrow, and play day 2D on Saturday. And I hope that people do that because
Yeah.
they should, because this thing is huge.
But does this
Right.
mean, in like your eyes, I guess we can kind of go around the horn, that the poker boom now is bigger than it was then, at least for live? You know, online's obviously going to be a little bit stinted because of the laws.
I like how it's quotes.
Air quotes
The
laws
laws.
that these quote supposed government will
Yeah.
put you in jail for if you break.
You theoretically might get in trouble. But do we think that live poker seems like it's back, but what do we think this means for future tournaments, guarantees, prize pools? Is it going to get bigger by a bigger margin, or just like slowly?
I think that like what I'm kind of intrigued by is trying to figure out like where this boom has actually come from, right? Like, is it, some people have suggested it's a product of the fact that we've had so much inflation that people don't see 10 grand as that big of a deal anymore. Maybe it's
The money printer.
yeah, like maybe it's a marketing thing. Is it some change in popularity of poker during COVID? Like, I think it's going to take a while for us to figure out exactly what the contributing factors are here, because it's not like the Moneymaker boom where it was very clear that Chris Moneymaker winning the main event was the starting point of the explosion of poker.
It kind of started the poker dream, if you will.
Right,
There was no
exactly.
dream until someone that didn't have many money won a satellite and then won the biggest tournament to ever exist.
Right. So like, I think it's gonna be a while before we kind of understand exactly what's contributed to this. And I don't think it is necessarily going to be the sort of thing that we can like artificially engineer, right? I don't think it's necessarily the kind of thing that we can just look at what happened here and then replicate that and make everything even bigger in 5 years. You know, it might just be a little bit that we kind of got lucky that a lot of people got into poker during COVID, possibly, and now this is just going to be a consistent thing as opposed to like a long-term.
You think it's kind of like a Queen's Gambit approach for chess, where chess kind of had some popularity, not that much, but then after that came out, it just had a massive boom?
But then if we think that that's what it is for poker now, like what is the thing that, was it just, you're saying that it was COVID that like got poker really popular?
Is that what happened when people returned to live poker? Feel to just bigger than before?
This is what I'm not sure about, right? Because I
wasn't even in poker yet. I was playing online like 200
right,
an hour.
I don't know for sure because different parts of the country came back to live poker at different times. The growth of what's Chauncey up to?
Chauncey wants to know where the poker boom came from.
I see, yeah. The growth of live poker fields post-COVID wasn't uniform, right? Like, it wasn't like everything here just exploded and then other places did the exact same. It was like some places couldn't get up and running again for a while.
Yeah, I mean, Florida WPT was an example. Like when COVID came back, you know, Alex Yen won the main for a million.
Right. Yeah.
Like, these are the biggest fields you've ever seen. You know, Florida Poker, Seminole Hard Rock Poker Open came back. Ilyas won the main in January, where it just crushed the guarantee, you know. But other places in the world, poker was still kind of not having that much traction. But now it seems like Borgata crushed it with their series that they did. You know, Florida's always been like a go-to stop every quarter, and that's just been like that for the past couple years.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because like the logic that says, well, everybody got into poker during COVID, would be the case if it was an online boom, right? Like
Which we did see,
but it's not like that's
Temporarily.
continued. Yeah, exactly. Like so in order to believe that it was COVID, you have to think, okay, well, a bunch of people started playing poker online during COVID and then liked it so much that they stopped playing online and started playing live afterwards.
Do you think that I'm not saying that it's true or not, but the slight change in the public's opinion about the validity of the cheating, maybe, or the bots, maybe like they think that maybe some of the online players have just moved to online because they feel that it's safer. So they feel that it's more straight up, or they don't have to worry
live,
about.
You mean, sorry?
Move to live. Yeah.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know. I hadn't really thought of that, but I guess my first thought about it would be that I think there's a lot of people who, like casual people that play poker, that really don't know about a lot of these cheating scandals and that just aren't really clued into them.
I feel like I talked to a lot of people at the table, like Rex, who are kind of make comments like, "Oh, I don't play on like." Actually, I was playing and someone was like, "Oh, are you playing the WSOP event?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't play online."
Yeah, the bracelet.
I don't play that. I don't play online.
Yeah.
Because and my impression from how they said it was like, I don't trust it, or like you don't know if it's on the up and up, or I want to look someone. You know what I mean? I feel like there's this like perception even amongst casual players that they feel that it's just that they can't fully know who's on the other end of the screen.
Right.
Even if they don't understand what RTA is, or I don't think they even take it that far. I think it's just an unknown thing.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to like real name online, you know, for regulated markets. Like, why would you not just have that sort of transparency when it comes to who is and is not playing? But I think there's probably some of it too. I wonder how much like Hustler has to do with it. You know, the whole Robbie Garrett stuff, the whole having I guess modern day celebrities like Alex Botez playing the main today, you know, Mr. Beast, I don't think he's playing the main, but was on Hustler, and those views, like the viewership of those streams was massive, and then they're promoting it to their audience in some regard, you know, like I know like Mr. Beast passively kind of promotes poker. He's never going to publicly promote it, but seeing him on Hustler is one of those things that proves that he does play poker. We hear Tortoise in the weeds. What we got?
Tortoise in the
I'm in the weeds. Yeah, I don't know. This poker room it's different than the first one, right? Because the first one, like, it was like multiple X of people getting into the game, right? Like 2006 was the record-breaking year, the Jimmy Gold year, where they got 8,700 people.
Right.
And but in 2003, when Moneymaker won, there were only 839 people in that tournament. So it 10x'd in like 3 years.
Yeah.
Where that's not what we're seeing now. We're not seeing like a 10x boom.
Yeah.
But we are seeing like maybe the height, like all these people that were already in poker or had interest that maybe faded away are coming back in, and alongside a few other people. So like the popularity of especially live tournament poker might be at its height right now.
Yeah, I think that might be that's a really good point, because I don't think we've seen anything happen that like made poker mainstream again necessarily. I definitely think these like streamer games and people like Botez and Mr. Beast and things like that getting into it, I definitely think that's helpful. But I don't think we've seen anything that would make poker like cool again, right? But I do think that a lot of different outlets are doing a better job of capturing a greater percentage of getting of the total percentage of people that are interested in poker. A higher percentage of them are actually playing live tournaments and actually investing money in it. You know,
poker's a funny thing because I know so many people that play poker privately, but don't know that poker is an industry publicly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, call it sneaky private games between people and friends that just kind of have their own little communities without even realizing that there's an industry. Like I didn't know that there was an industry until I started using Twitter. Otherwise, I just thought that poker was just a game that people played for fun and you can't really make a living from it.
Yeah.
But there's got to be something along the lines of course, it boomed with cable TV when cable TV was important. But now it seems like more so that streams and online type of environments are more
prevalent.
They're more prevalent. Yeah, thank you. More prevalent to the common watcher. You know, who watches cable TV anymore?
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
know. It's all streaming services, right? So the more eyes I get on it from the social media standpoint, like Hustler did have a clip of poker, like the stream getting over 2 million views. You know, like there's just tons of viewership that is still here, but how do we capture that to the live arena?
That you know what that might be. I hadn't thought of this, but that might be a big contributor to it. It might be that we're starting to understand how poker can capture people's attention on social media, like how people that were otherwise not consuming poker content or engaging with poker, maybe there are enough people out there now, vloggers, you know, all kinds of different outlets that are engaging with poker in different ways, that we're starting to attract people in specifically through that medium, because everything these days, like there's no industry that doesn't get a lot of its marketing through social media. So maybe that's contributing a lot.
I think there's also a decent amount of public perception that goes into poker not just being a gambling game anymore, if that makes sense. You know, like there's still the gamble aspect, which is fun and kind of gets people on edge, but also realizing that there is a skill set involved to it to allow you to win.
But at the same time, we're seeing things like mystery bounties becoming super popular, which actually is putting more gamble back into it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think actually
Yeah,
a lot
for
of
sure.
recreationals do like,
Yeah.
you know, for good reason, obviously.
Mystery bounties are awesome.
So yeah, that's an amazing.
And pros like it too.
It is a funny thing with the mysteries, because call it the good studied MTT vanilla pros, like that understand ICM concepts and all the ladders and pay jumps, kind of get diminished because you're not able to access that much of the prize pool anymore. But at the same time, you can still have edge in realizing the strategies of mystery bounties, where you can win a ton of theoretical dollars and IOUs for making some good plays pre-flop that you might not, that most of the field might not be aware of yet.
Yeah.
You know, so you can still have a skill edge, but there's definitely more gamble, as well as the prize pool of like a really big prize being available to people where maybe they don't have access to it otherwise, right? Because making a deep run is very tough. But in this sort of format, if you make day two and knock someone out, you might just win $100,000.
Yeah, and it just seems awesome for the game as a whole, because someone who banks a 100K bounty, who might be a very weak player, who's never going to actually win 100K in a tournament, but they bank the bounty and then they go play a 10K with 10% of their winnings, like that's great for the poker economy.
Yeah, if some of the prize pool from the bounties go back into the ecosystem,
Exactly.
it allows for more entries in bigger fields. So I guess speaking of the win, you know, they're going to run the 10K that I'm definitely going to play, you know, because I don't have dreams of winning the main event this year.
They won't let you back into the main.
Yeah, they won't let me back in. I have to watch from the sidelines, which...
Good segue, by the way.
Yeah, of course. It's the Everyone for One Drop 10K event from July 9th to the 14th in 2023, which is basically this weekend, Sunday, right? I think Sunday is...
Yeah, it starts on Sunday.
Sunday, 3 flights, 1 re-entry per flight. So kind of unlimited
So you can
re-entry,
play,
you know?
if you're Berkey, you can play a 60K.
If you're Berkey, you can play a lot of your ABI in
If you're
a short
right,
time.
and if you're Landon and you get full house over full house, you can play again.
Yeah.
They won't shut you out.
They won't shut me out, but they might boat over boat me again. So
Yeah.
we're just going to have
Right,
to gamble.
Unfortunately, there's no such thing as a tournament where boat over boat is not allowed.
Yeah. Maybe it's just boat over boat for me instead of somebody else.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Maybe you have the 8s this time.
Yeah. Maybe I do.
Turbo jam that river.
Maybe he just calls.
Yeah, maybe he just doesn't fold the deuces.
Yeah, who knows, you know? But anyways, I guess we'll let the tortoise get back into creeping
let's
and
go,
crawling.
tortoise.
Let's go, Tortoise.
Yep. Couple more minutes.
Let's go,
left.
tortoise.
So let's do this. I will see you guys. I guess I'll see you guys on day 3, since
Yeah,
we'll
you
be
will.
separate on
Well,
day 2.
We'll also
So-
see you tomorrow because
Yeah,
you have a day
tomorrow's
off.
That is true.
Hopefully you come back to us after
I
you
will be
bag
back.
600K.
Yeah.
Yep. That
I would
sounds good.
I would really love a Brian Lamana headlines day 1D.
That would be amazing. Let's go, Ninja
We'll
Tortoise.
see what
Go
happens
get him,
these
Tortoise.
these
GLGL.
last 2 levels.
Yep.
All right.
Let's
bye,
go.
guys.
Tortoise is in
Yeah.
the chat. Let's go. Yeah, it seems like both of our compatriots of the A team are doing pretty well in the main. Conrad said
are.
he's got 90. Brian has 94.
Yeah, they're bagging, doing way better than me and Berkey did yesterday.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, Stantic Berkey had a tough day too.
Yeah,
He
Matt
did.
bagged I think 24K.
Yeah.
Um,
He was very unhappy about it, or he seemed like it at least.
Yeah, he seemed unhappy about it, and then you just have to kind of perspective shift him back into you could just be out of the main,
Yes.
right? You have 30 bigs, you're gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just relax.
And he's been playing cash with whales all day. So,
Yeah.
Like,
Bro bagged 9 bigs in the secret bounty, and then had heaps. You know, so now you have 30 bigs in one of the softest 10K of the year.
Yeah, isn't he? He's also like 6 for 10 or something cashing events this
7
summer.
for 9 or
something absurd.
some nasty
like,
number.
Like recreational tournament player just cashes like 2/3 of his tournaments.
Yeah, with an ABI of like 5K plus.
Right.
Like, okay, dude, sure.
Easy.
Yeah, you know, it is one of those tournaments, like just the main in general, where I've heard so many stories from other people that I talk to where they say, I would have probably busted out of any other tournament if I ran this bad, but I need to treat the main so much differently than others. Because if you can snap back into the perspective of, okay, sure, I have half starting, but half starting is still a lot, and I've waited all year to play this tournament, there's definitely going to be a difference in mentality when it comes to playing certain spots.
Yeah, for sure. I had a spot that was almost exactly like that. It was against Zeus, actually. Our former softball white colleague, Andy Zuzolo. I had a spot where I was down to like 14, 15K in chips.
Big blind is?
400.
Okay.
I opened queen jack off, like low jack or something. Button calls, Zeus calls in the big blind. It comes queen deuce deuce rainbow. Zeus checks. I bet like just over 1 big blind. Button folds. Zeus like checks his whole cards and then calls. And I was like, that's a little weird because it's not a suited flop.
Rainbow.
Yeah, it's a rainbow flop. So like I was a bit wary. And it turns an offsuit 4, so it's queen deuce deuce 4 Badoogie. Zeus checks, and I'm like, I'm supposed to just like triple off here and try to get called by a worse queen. But I just had that
Spidey
feeling.
sense.
I had that spidey sense of like, I feel like he has too much deuce X here. He's not check raising enough, and that the card check just spooked me. So I check back.
Spooky check.
He bets 2,100 on the river, and I'm supposed to like at that point I'm probably supposed to just like jam for value. The river was like a 5. I'm supposed to like jam for value. I'm supposed to just get my
just
last or just like raise, or just get most of my chips in. But again, spidey sense went off, and I just called, and he has ace deuce off.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, I was supposed to maybe not bust, but I was supposed to almost bust the tournament in that hand, possibly bust if I just triple off. And I saved myself.
Yep.
And I would not have cared that much about the spidey sense aspect of that hand if it was some other tournament. But in the main, I'm like, I'm not going to be the guy who ignores the spidey sense and then busts the main. It's like, why didn't I listen to the spidey sense? You know?
Yep.
And
there's a weird in between, right?
He had the deuce, and we saved ourselves a little bit.
It's tough when it comes to call it playing good theoretical strategy versus kind of not valuing tournament life in a sense, but I think a very big skill when it comes to not just the main, but just big field tournaments in general, you know, like 1,000+ entries where you can have some high ROIs, is understanding value thresholds when it comes to going for thin value, as well as understanding raising thresholds when it comes to realizing what you get called by, you know? Because in theory, there's some spots where you have some raises and you're going to get called by worse. But if these hands stop calling, sure, they're going to have an issue with it, but at the same time, you're probably going to be value cutting yourself in a lot of spots.
Yeah, like I have a hand from yesterday that I wasn't very happy. We don't need to go into it, but I wasn't very happy about it because I raised bottom set on the river in a 3-bet pot on a board of King 7-5, 9 queen, 3 hearts, and it was a river spot where I was like, he bet like 2/3 pot or something. I was like, how do I not raise here? Because he checked back the turn. Like I check called the flop, he checked back the turn. I was like, how do I not raise a set here? This is like absurd that I'm thinking about not raising a set. And I raised and he just folded. But in the end, I was like, actually, he can just have like a set of queens there. Like he can have a weird jack 10. Like, is he actually going to pay me off with like black aces or something weird? Like, when I actually think about what I'm getting paid off by, I'm just like hoping he has king queen.
The variance is strange because like some people that you do play against will like beat you in the pot with hands like that.
Yeah.
And then some people will never put a chip in the pot.
Right.
You might get someone to fold a set of queens.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that in between of realizing like kind of the KYC, right? To know your customer when it comes to making certain decisions. But I think the people that have the highest ROIs are able to manipulate these situations better than the aggregate.
Yeah. My hedge in that spot was I had like 38K behind and he bet like 8,500. And a lot of the time I would have just jammed, but my hedge was to raise to 22K.
Yeah.
And he just like pretty quickly folded. It was like some Argentinian guy that had like a patch on his arm but didn't play good. So like I don't know who he was. Like he was just like flatting every
in before it's Nacho.
It's not Nacho. It's not Nacho. It's some other guy. His last name was Beretta. I don't know.
His last name was Barbero. No, I'm kidding.
I didn't realize Matt Hunt had such ruthless descriptions of people, and I'm here for it. I am.
You should know what British people are like.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I mean, even Spraggy's a little bit publicly is a little bit more PC about it.
Well, I mean, I don't think he spoke much English, so I don't think he's listening to this podcast.
Yeah, Spaggy was like, oh, Spaggy like, oh, action gambler. Matt Hunt's just out here just like whale.
He's the fucking worst ever. Like, sucks.
But yeah, I mean, it definitely.
I like to subvert expectations sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. You know, someone's got to keep it real in these streets.
Yeah.
And it ain't going to be me.
I hedged in this spot. I raised to a size that was like, it was like a size I would never normally use. And I was just like hoping he had king queen.
Yeah, there's definitely value in the punch counter punch strategy.
Yeah.
You know, where you know that these things are not correct in a vacuum, but in the practical realm, maybe they're really good.
Yeah.
Because when it look at certain things like bluff catchers, right? In theory, indifferent bluff catcher is 0, like 0 EV, and you're calling just to defend frequency wise. But in practice, some bluff catchers might be worth so much or so little, you know, and being able to understand what spots they are good value, like good bluff catchers and bad bluff catchers. Doesn't even matter what suits your cards are in some spots, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes people play ranges in a certain way, and poker's hard, you know? But the people that can manipulate these spots and understand how to make the most of it or lose the least are the ones that are going to be able to have higher ROIs, right?
Yeah.
It's just kind of about dodging landmines. And sometimes they're unavoidable, right? Sometimes you just get set over set for all of it, and sometimes you can actually find some ways to not lose as much as you're supposed to or gain more value than you're supposed to in certain spots too.
And sometimes you have to do the equivalent of trusting that the landmine is a dud landmine, and you step on it and you just trust that they don't have it, and you just call, and you know you bluff catch and you're right.
Yeah.
Happened to me yesterday, and I was very grateful that I was right, because it would have been a spot where I was like, if I busted the main that way, I would have been super frustrated about it, but you know I called and was right, and I was super happy about it instead. Numbers
are strange because sometimes people will kick themselves for making a very good practical play and got an unlucky result versus choosing maybe a theoretically correct one and making it and then feeling some sort of we call it solver cope. You know, it's like, oh, like my hand's indifferent and I mixed 4 and I rolled a 70 and I'm going to call, and he had the nuts. And it's like, oh man, I feel good about it because I know I should call sometimes. And some spots you need to be able to do that and calibrate because players are good. And then other spots, it's not so clear, you know? So I guess when it comes to the EV in certain spots, like sometimes folding the bluff catchers in certain situations is worth a lot because you're supposed to lose more. You know, you have to bluff catch because you don't beat value, but you're hoping they're bluffing.
Yeah.
But if the bluffs don't exist, bluff catching becomes really bad.
Here's a question for you, because the bluff catch that I'm thinking of that I made it mostly based on live stuff, like live behavior,
live reads.
Yeah.
Are live reads real?
I did my live pro shit. Like,
shit.
I was gonna say, how often in 0 EV bluff catches spots do you actually pay attention to that kind of stuff? Because I know you're like me. You came through online
more often now than before. Right. You know, and prior me, I mean, still sort of current me, when I don't know where to default, I'm not gonna beat some players off of live reads, right? That's not where my EV comes from. My edge comes from playing theoretically well and knowing how to make some proper adjustments, you know?
Yeah.
In some situations versus some really great players, I'm not going to be the guy that gains value by trying to live read someone.
Right.
Right? Like if I'm playing someone like D. Peters in a pot, I'm not worried about what he's doing.
Right.
I'm never going to be able to get anything.
Yeah.
And what's important is understanding those baselines and trusting those when you don't have anything else to go off of.
Right.
But if you don't have those things to go off of, you're basically shooting dark.
Yeah. And this was like a mistake that I almost made yesterday in this big spot where it was the guy to my direct right bluff jammed on me on the river, and I thought it through, and I was like, a lot of it was like screaming at me to call. And then part of me was just like, I don't want to bust the main event this way, right? I really don't want him to just have it and I bust the main event and I feel like an idiot. Yeah. And then midway through my tank.
Also, they just always have it.
Yeah.
They always have it until they don't, right?
They always have it until they don't. Yeah. The midway through my tank, I was like, I haven't even looked at this guy yet. I should look at him. I looked at him like quite quickly to my right. And then as soon as I looked at him, like his whole like demeanor just like shifted, right? It was one of those things where you're like, he was responding to me looking at him in a way that was very obvious. Like like his face kind of twitched, and his like hand was under the table, and I could see his hand was like twitching in some way or like shaking, and I was like, geez, this cannot be the face of someone who is just sitting there with a value hand wanting me to call. And it wasn't. So I was like proud of myself for looking at a spot where I was like 0 EV bluff catcher, might call, might fold, but the live tail pushed me in one direction. And being an online guy, like I very rarely make decisions on that basis, but I think from time to time, like there's value in it. You know?
Personally, the way that I see these spots, I like to look at a practical confidence interval. And it's something that I make up in my own head, right? How confident am I that someone is doing something that they normally wouldn't, right? And sometimes you're going to be wrong, but I would rather trust myself and be wrong than go against myself and be wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Because example that sticks out to me, and I don't even know if D-Lies even had the King Jack. I think he did. But anyways, button versus big blind, 60 effective. I have ace of spades 5. Flop comes queen 10 6 with 2 spades. He checks. I go B25. You can also go bigger, but it's fine. He calls. Turn is a deuce. He checks. Offsuit deuce. He checks. I know that this is like kind of one of the worst ace X we're gonna have. The spade's gonna be nice later, so I go for the overbet for 150% pot, and he calls. And the river is a 10. But he can't have 10x of spades because the queen and 10 are spades. He lead jams. And I'm like, I know how good you are at poker, and I know in theory this hand might actually find a call, right? Because the ace of spades he's never going to bluff with on the end. The 5 is kind of a dangler that he's never going to have. And it's very clear that he could have some spade draws that he doesn't want to raise over the overbet, as well as the king jack that's drawing to the nuts that can't fold and doesn't always check raise flop. So now I'm in this spot where I'm like, man, I know how good you are. I know where the obvious bluffs are, and I know what the defined value is, right? It's just going to be a 10 most of the time. So in the moment, I was like, man, this feels like a really good bluff catcher, and maybe the sim agrees, but I didn't have the confidence that in theory it was even on the table because it feels like such a ridiculous kind of call to make after going C-bet kind of as a bluff, right? And then you overbet turn definitely as a bluff. And now he lead jams on you. Yeah. And you're like, well, wait, I kind of win.
Now I call.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't have the confidence. I was pretty sure based off of mechanics that this hand might mix a call just because of the certain suits that I had in my hand. Like not bluffing with the ace of spades. And the 5 is effectively a nothing. And I end up tanking, and I'm like, man, my hand's really bad, but I beat everything that you're bluffing with. And it's also very possible for somebody good to wake up with king jack here, play it in this fashion, and realize I can still have 10x that I have to be indifferent with on the turn with the spade for sure. And I don't know where my bluffs would come from, but this feels like a good one because he also blocks some of my best calls, like the queen jack and the king queen. So I end up folding, and I'm like, you bitch. Like, really annoying spot. I end up folding. He tells me it's king jack, and I look at his sim, and the ace 5 is indifferent.
Wow.
Yeah.
And like it's that validating thing where I really wanted to trust myself. Went for the fold because I thought in the back of my mind, man, are my friends gonna think I'm really stupid?
I was gonna say that. Does that ever pop in your brain? In that,
all the time.
In that spot of sending that text, busted, and then you got to put the hand history.
Busted. What was the hand? And it's this.
And it's just, and especially in a big event.
It was a 5K 6 max.
Yeah, it's just that goes through your mind, you know, of just, am I really gonna send out this dirty text message to my group of just busted, and they're gonna be like, what the fuck? And you have to just. Yeah, it's just brutal.
One day we'll have a conversation about what's the dumbest way each of us has busted a tournament.
Yeah.
We're being played out right now. So.
Yeah, it won't be today, but it'll be another time. Anyways, thanks for rocking with us. You know, late night shift at 7 p.m. And hopefully the A squad comes back tomorrow with some good news. Brian bagging 600, Conrad bagging 350, and having that day off tomorrow. So we'll see you then.
Let's do it.
Bye.